Without sustainability, there is no future of farming. And without farming, it's very difficult to feed the world.
What an honor to be here. Thank you for having us. And I'm very lucky to be joined by two inspirational business leaders working with sustainability in mind. So my first question for you is, what sustainable practices do you use in your company, and what impacts have you seen to reduce waste and use resources to the best effect?
So I'll go first. As I always say on this subject, we're very lucky. The shellfish farming is actually naturally very sustainable. So any sort of shellfish farm around the world is off to a good start there. Mm-hmm. We practice oyster farming across Ndiba in the open ocean. And the nature of shellfish farming is they actually feed naturally in the ocean. So that it's low intensity and feeding naturally. So it's kind of just baked into what we do. It's fully sustainable farming practice. It's environmentally positive. The oysters themselves, as they feed, they're building their shell, and they're actually sequestering carbon. So we're not only producing it in a sustainable way, we're also sequestering carbon, removing it from the environment.
Wonderful. And I know I, for one, would love to hear more about the initiatives you're using to put seashells back into the oceans to
Yes. So the oysters will sequester carbon into their shells, but a lot of the time these shells will then get thrown away. And so what we're doing is we've actually just launched a project called the Ndiba Bay Oyster Reef Restoration Project, a bit of a mouthful. But what we're doing is we're collecting the used oyster shells. So on the topic of wastage, we're taking the shells back from the restaurants, mm-hmm. and then we've got an area set up outside Ndiba, and we've got a 700-meter long stretch of coastline, and we're actually wrapping the shells in sort of mesh bags, and we're placing them on the ocean floor, and this creates marine environment, because when shellfish naturally breed, they produce larvae, and the larvae swims around, and they actually have to find a little bit of broken shell to attach onto in order to grow. So if you put a big pile of shells out on the seabed, it's automatically a breeding ground for the local pearl oysters. So we're going to have a very sort of lively, natural oyster reef developing very quickly along the coastline there. And
That's
we're really proud
exciting.
to be able to do that.
Yeah, definitely. And to see so much life being brought into that coastline. That's congratulations.
Thank you.
And Arnold, same question.
Yes, we are farming around the world in about 20 countries, all kind of products in the most sustainable way. But I believe our biggest contribution to sustainability has been here in the country, in the UAE, by enabling the UAE to move away from growing alfalfa forages, mm-hmm. which are used for camels and goats, and from migrating that from growing it here in the desert into other countries. And we are growing these forage products and sourcing these forage products from Europe, US, South America, and Australia, and bring them here to enable more sustainable water usage for the water that is here in the ground. But by doing that, we not only saved a lot of water and energy in the UAE, because there are more suitable climates to grow forage and grass, but also where we grow, we do that in a very sustainable way. And the carbon sequestration that oysters are doing in the sea, actually our main crop alfalfa is doing on land. Alfalfa is a grass type that grows about this high, but has about 8 meters of roots in the soil. And that not only increases the organic matter in the soil, so regenerates the soil. Mm-hmm. It helps with regenerative agriculture that a lot of people talk about, but also sequesters nitrogen and carbon in the soils. And if you do that with a minimal use of water and chemicals and nutrients, by applying all kind of innovative farming practices, you can do this in a very sustainable way.
Fantastic. And I'd be interested to know, so oysters grow here very naturally, but you must be, in the UAE, it's not very hospitable to many types of agriculture. What sort of challenges do you see, and how do you go about growing successfully here?
Yes, Aldara was actually started with a mission to create food security for the country. There are a couple of ways to do food security. You can grow everything that you need in the country, And actually we're doing that in quite sustainable ways, for instance with hydroponic farming with our joint venture Pure Harvest in Allion. We grow in traditional greenhouses, cucumbers and tomatoes in a very sustainable way. But to do everything you can in the country is quite challenging if you want bananas and rice also to grow here. But the first line of defense is growing in the country your foods, or have food reserves in the country. A second line of defense where we help the country with in food security is buy farms and start farms around the world. So we do that in about 20 countries. And of course the products that we farm in Romania or in Egypt don't have to come here. But in times of need we have, I would say, a call option on whatever grains or fruits we grow there and bring that here. But of course it's more sustainable to do it in the most advantaged climate, because indeed it will be challenging to grow all that wheat and barley and corn that we do in Serbia, Romania, to grow that here. This is a good way that we can secure this for the country, but not having to deplete the natural resources here. And I always say the third line of defense is make a lot of friends. And I believe the UAE has a lot of friends around the world that we can source products from, like India, Pakistan, that we get the rice from, that we bring to the UAE.
Wonderful. And do you have local alliances that have boosted your resource efficiency at all as well, or it's mostly international?
We have alliances around the world. Of course, we work very strongly together with our technology partners who bring us machinery and digital platforms to do more precise farming. If you would go to our operations in Romania, which is the largest farm in Europe, it's a massive wall of displays showing all kind of information from partners, so from satellites, weather forecast, from our own research, what is in the ground, from our partners like John Deere, who have massive tractors and measure what are the yields in every different plot that we have. That data we bring together, and we can only do that with the partners we have, to optimize this piece of land needs a little bit more of this nutrient. Actually, we can use less chemicals here. If we give a bit more water there, we have more yield. And that is not only a very sustainable way to operate a farm, but also a very economical way to operate a farm. And I love it when I see that coming together. We don't have to preach sustainability. If we do sustainability, it's actually very good for our business. And that comes with partnerships faster and more advantage than if you try to do by yourself.
Absolutely. I mean, it's great when sustainability makes business sense. Nadia mentioned earlier greatly that in the long term, sustainability is what will bring the profits. So that's very inspiring. And Remy, how about you? In terms of your partnerships, do you have connections here that have helped you in the sustainable space?
Well, there is, of course, a big government push for food security. And so there is a lot of policy coming through to help with that and to push the supermarkets, to push retailers. But I think the best thing that has happened is in the media, the marketing of sustainably produced food, because we're now seeing a lot of pull from consumers, and so this is the best way to promote sustainable products. So there's been a lot of education campaigns, and so we partner a lot with the media to sort of get the message out about what is being produced locally here in a sustainable fashion. Of course, you can produce anything you want here if you throw enough money at it. But I think the key, and something we're very proud of, is that our product grows naturally in the ocean. And so I think it's about encouraging and working with organizations that are going to promote that. So.
Perfect. And Remy, I know I'm incredibly interested to know, you've been operating for about 10 years. So you've seen changes in the coastal lines. Has that affected your business as you've started? How well that coast? In the coast, how well the coast, how many, how the coral life is doing, the coral.
Yeah, so we're across in Dibba, and the reason we're across there is it's quite untouched.
Okay.
So it's a pristine environment across there on the east coast. It's very important for shellfish to have very clean surroundings, very clean ocean. So we're very happy being across in Dibba. We've seen, obviously there's been a lot of change along the Abu Dhabi, Dubai coastlines, and part part of the reason we're across in Fujairah is because that hasn't happened. So specifically for shellfish, we've had to stay across on the East Coast.
Okay, fantastic. And would you have any recommendations for benefiting the coastline throughout the UAE? Tricky question for you.
Well, build oyster reefs. I mean, oyster reefs are the basis of marine environments. And so if you build an oyster reef, everything else comes on top of that. So the coral will start growing there, lots of other species will grow there, and it is the base of the marine environment. So anywhere you can build an oyster reef, anywhere you can promote marine habitat, that's the way to go.
Fantastic. And back to you, Arnaud. Do you think it's becoming more important for companies to look at the sustainable agenda, to be asking this within themselves as they grow?
No, absolutely. Not only does it make business sense to work sustainably, but we get, of course, a lot of questions from our investors on our practices, and there's a lot of green capital out there to invest in businesses if you're sustainable. Also, a lot of customers are asking, on behalf of their consumers, how do you farm? If we farm our corn in a sustainable way, our Spanish customer can use it in their cereals and make claims on how we farm this corn in Romania. So customers ask for it, consumers ask for it, but increasingly also young talent ask actually tough questions. And how do we do as a company our sustainable practice? Is it just in your annual report, in your beautiful sustainability report, or is it in your DNA, in your actual way of working? Because otherwise, frankly, I don't want to work for your company. So yes, it is extremely important to do so.
Fantastic. And would you say the same thing? Would you say your company has a benefit because it is naturally sustameable? Will more people support you because of it?
No, absolutely. We get a lot of positive support for what we're doing. We're a luxury gourmet product, but we're very good for the environment. We're sustainably produced. So yeah, we enjoy a lot of support. It's pretty easy to get behind. So,
fantastic. Wonderful. So I also want to ask you both for your recommendations. How would you advise others to embrace ecological responsibility while delivering high quality goods?
I think particular to the UAE, it's, I mentioned earlier, I mean, if you throw enough money at something, you can grow anything you want here. So I think it's about making the smart choices about what to grow here. It's about crop selection, it's about species selection, and finding that balance. Because you can't grow everything that consumers want here. You can't, but it's about choosing the right things that you can grow here, and then finding clever ways to bring it in a sustainable way from other parts of the world. So it just crop selection, species selection. So.
And doing what makes sense naturally, I guess. And same question.
Yes, I think I would look at sustainable practices that make sense for your company. Don't only look for great commitments that sound beautiful when you put them on a website, but are very hard to implement. But there's so many sustainable practices that make sense on a business level. I was just sharing, I was earlier this week in Morocco, where our farming team has small spider traps on their olive trees made out of cotton. And they say, well, we will only spray for our pesticides if it's necessary. If we find more than 10 spiders, then we need to spray. And guess what? This year we didn't have to. So that was not only good for environment, because less chemicals in the environment, but actually economically also makes sense because it's reduced our costs. Now, these very simple practices we already do. Now, we also start telling about it in a nice way, but probably best to look first what makes sense for your company and then make your commitments around that.
Perfect. Do you guys have any last messages that you want to tell our crowd today about sustainability, about your business? Support local wherever you can, but local produce that makes sense. Arnaud.
I believe our mission is sustainably feeding a growing world. It starts with sustainability. Our values start with sustainable, and especially in farming, without sustainability, there is no future of farming. And without farming, it's very difficult to feed the world. So I think sustainability is a no escape for our type of businesses, but probably for all businesses in this room.
Very good messages. Thank you. Thank you, guys.